both, because you need to share, but you also need to measure. And the question is how to do it in such a way that it is induces collaboration rather than induces saying, well, I won't get my reward, so I'm not going to share.
Well, I'd like to just go back to the point that I started with, that knowledge sharing, moving knowledge is a human activity.
Sure.
Now, yeah, I agree. I'm not disagreeing with the idea that we need to measure. But I think we've become obsessed, and it's an industrial age phenomenon, with measurement. There's a lot that we have to do in the world without measurement. And I always say, the thing that we don't measure is how much you love me or don't love me. You know what I mean? And that's fundamental. We get along in life, but when somebody says, I love you, you don't say, give me a scale of 1 to 10. You know, that sort of thing. So, and it's a human, we either see organizations in the machine-like way that we've seen them for 100 years, factories, in which case knowledge management and knowledge sharing has a very limited role to play, because it's all about machines, and machines don't share knowledge. Or we see organizing as human social activities, in which case there's a lot that we do because we have to do it, because there's a sense of... We also have to change our ways of being accountable. Hierarchy says we're accountable to the top. Now, the top has very little idea of what's going on, so it needs to try to measure everything, right? But if we're accountable to our peers, if we're accountable across, then we don't need to keep measuring a lot of the stuff, because our peers will keep us honest, and so it requires a fundamental change in the way we think about all these things. But the question I come back to is, why do we want to share knowledge, and is it important? And I say it's important because that's how we get our work done today. It wasn't important in factories, but it's absolutely important in our work today. And if it's important, then we have to organize so that it's important. We can't go on pretending that you know what I mean? We can't go on struggling with the fact that we want it to happen, but it won't happen. Because in a way, I think we're increasingly aware of why it won't happen within the structures that we have.
But even within the structure we have now, Mark, I would argue that we are being forced to share knowledge. And what I mean by that is, you take your industrial model, where I had a job to do, and a job is the point I'm making.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, well, not ask, but just people to think around here. Anybody that's been through, project management, junior management, and middle management in the last 10 years, think about from 10 years ago to now.
How it's changed.
How many jobs you are doing now, the one job you were doing 10 years ago because of the hierarchical structures push for efficiency. The only way you're managing to achieve your job now is through the use of technology and actively going out there socially and sharing knowledge.
True. Yeah.
Otherwise you fail. And I believe that's a fundamental difference and shift, which is not something that is being pushed down at us, but it's just by circumstance that we're actually changing the way we're doing business ourselves now.
I absolutely agree, and the way I've sort of framed it has not been appreciative of the sort of view that you're giving. But I don't believe that anybody sort of invented knowledge management and said, now we must do knowledge management. It's on the agenda because for the reasons that you're talking about. Our work requires it. You know what I mean? Knowledge has become, knowledge sharing and so on has become a key part of our work. And so being able to, and it's happening all the time. I think the difficulty that we face, I'm sorry that's mine and I should have, but it will stop in a sec. But
you're clearly not on an AT&T network because you're getting a signal.
I'll tell you the truth. I'm on Verizon. I think this is the only place I get a signal. It doesn't work in the car. It doesn't. It happens to work in the room. Yes. Anyway, your point is well taken. That the momentum is there. This is happening. I think the difficulty that we have is that we often get kind of bogged down in or caught up in the sort of technical aspects of this, and we don't step back and say, well, what's happening? What is this all about? And it is about, partly it's about the technology that enables us to access knowledge and share knowledge very readily. I was sort of, for the first time this last spring, faced with this dilemma. I've never been in a classroom where the entire class of students is sitting in front of me with notebook computers, and who knows what they're doing. Some of them may be doing some note-taking, some of them may be connected to the internet, somebody may be instant messaging somebody down the way. But the point is that our world is changing, and it's changing in a connected way and a knowledge-sharing way. And so the fact that our institutions are slow to change may be understandable, because there's a lot that's kind of vested in those institutions. But I think our responsibility is to say, let's step back a bit from being sort of, how do we do all this technically, and say, well, in a practical sense, what's it about? And it's about that human process. It's about a human process which is very social. And it's about a human process which is social and cooperative rather than sort of social and competitive. And then how do we move that way? Yeah. So if I could just add one point to we often, I think, come to knowledge management from the perspective, and I often hear this, that it's all about efficiency. It's about bigger, faster, quicker, cheaper. And yes, that's part of the agenda. But to me, it's more than that, and the more is the important part. It's about being able to do our work at all, because the work is in sharing knowledge today. And if we can't do that, we can't do our work, and so we're ineffective. So the efficiency is a kind of, to me, secondary consideration. It comes afterwards. And again, that's being sort of blinded by the science. Efficiency is scientific, and sharing knowledge and organizing is not scientific. And so we tend to focus on the things that, to me, the momentum behind knowledge management is not initially about efficiency. It's about bringing back the social processes, because once we're out of the factory, that's how we get our work done.
But I think
Sorry, your question, I just want.
Yeah, on measurements and metrics, I think it's pretty obvious that you do need to measure. If you don't measure, you don't know what you got. You don't know if you did it or not. The distracting thing that I experience is what you measure.
Yes, exactly.
We, as an entity trying to do something, organizing, sharing, whatever we do to get something done, the metric of what did we do and how soon and what is important. And it's important for the whole organization all the way up to the top. Mm-hmm. The common way, though, is that the top makes assumptions about how things are done, and they make assumptions of what needs to be there and who needs to do what to do better at that. Mm-hmm. And they're usually wrong. And they also constrain the creativity of the people doing the work of how they do it, rather than just actually measuring the final product.
Right. And I agree with you entirely. If the metrics drives it, and we say, well, what matters is what we can measure, I'm arguing that in today's world of knowledge work and knowledge sharing, there's a lot of the important stuff is unmeasurable.
But the result of that is not it. But the result of that must be.
That's fine. But the processes that we're and I'm trying to say that what we're concerned with is process here, not outcomes. Top management can be concerned with outcomes, but we're concerned with processes. And there's a lot in the processes that was very different in the factory system. You could